So, how was it to take on another iconic role like Charlie, as you'd already done Terminator, and now you're doing another wonderful old school genre film?
It was great. It's really great. I'm really, I'm really honored to be a part of it. 'Cause it's a great. The original is such a great film in terms of discussing the horror genre in general, and it's sort of, the way, basically the effect that the icons of the genre, the way the semantics of the genre change, and I think it's really, the original's such a smart film, and aside from that, very entertaining, and I feel very lucky to be a part of this. I think it's a great character, and I think there's a little bit more, because this film is a little less self-consciously about the genre, as opposed to, it's more about, there's more emphasis on the story, whereas I think in the original it's specifically a film about genre.
It was very self-aware.
Yeah. So I think, but I think this film really does remain respectful of the original and combine elements, use elements from the original, outside of just the plot points, but I think it gives Charlie a slightly different kind of arc. It gives him more of an arc, and it's just a great role, outside of the fact that it was originally a great role anyway.
Awesome.
I mean, you said the original commented on the kind of state the genre was in, and even now, the original came out of this Lost Boys, all Near Dark, and all these other amazing vampire movies, and now this is going to come out amidst Twilight Fever and all this. Is there any still sort of commenting on that, even though it's not exactly?
Absolutely. There's a kind of intertextual commentary going on, because I think this film is aware that it is a particular kind of vampire film amidst the sort of surge in popularity, obviously, of vampire films, and I think in that way it also, I don't know if that it is it's specifically honor, is meant to honor the original, but it's just, I think, an inherent element of this film, Fright Night, is that's what the part of the film has to perform that function. I think this one does that as well, absolutely. Ed talks about Twilight in the movie, to sort of make, part of the thing about this one is that Jerry is a really terrifying presence. He's not a sort of benign, lovesick vampire. He's just he's a monster in the sort of, I guess you could say, classical sense of what a monster is. He's out to, he is something that Charlie defines his identity against, and his masculinity against, and is something that is vicious and dark and dangerous. And so I think by referencing Twilight, it also does that. It talks about the way that the monster has changed in genre filmmaking.
So in the original, Charlie and Peter had a very mentor, hero worship, and then figures out the reality.
Right.
It sounds like that's going to be a little different in this. Can you expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I think the main difference is that Charlie's lost his appreciation for sort of fantastic elements that Ed is still very fond of and into, and Charlie's made a conscious attempt to kind of leave that in his past, his kind of adolescent past, and tried to move on. And then when Ed approaches him with this idea of speaking to Peter Vincent about it, Charlie just blows him off because he thinks it's absurd. But ultimately, Charlie does come to Peter when he doesn't know where else to go, in search of some sort of answers what to do, and learns that, similar to the original, that Peter's kind of just a hoax,
Gotcha.
Now, so often horror kind of mistreats its the youth, kind of kids in its cast or the main characters. And I don't know how old you are, but I imagine you're pretty young. I'm 22.
Yeah, I'm 21.
Yeah, I know Chris is fairly young. You guys are all playing around that age. Do you think the film will actually be true to yeah, I mean, is it going to be a film where 22-year-olds sit down and go, fucking talk like this? I don't know.
No, I think Chris especially is, you know, very, very talented and very conscious of making. We're all, I think, very conscious of making the dialogue as natural as possible, you know, and sometimes you have to excuse me, you have to sometimes part of the self-consciousness of the film comes from a certain kind of stylized, you know, where you know,
Yeah.
in that, you know, throwing a joke in a situation where you normally wouldn't be kidding around, you know, and I think that comes from the self-consciousness of the genre, and also not only of, you know, I think the original, it really pinpoints the fact that it was a time when genre was conscious of being genre, but in a sort of self-parodying way, and I think this does that a bit. Definitely Marty's script does that, you know, and you have to make room for that in trying to, in expressing what the, you know, expressing the philosophy of the film, you know, as a genre film. But I do think that, you know, everyone is really, especially Chris. I mean, Chris's work is, it's so natural, you know, and it's so grounded in the way you would just have adolescent dialogue that I think definitely, I think you sit down and watch this movie and you don't feel, because I know I watch movies and you're like, people would speak that way. And
Exactly. Yeah, well, my question was more geared towards, I guess, the archetype of the young dumb youth, and like the slasher and such like that.
Right. No.
So yeah, it's not as if the stylized dialogue will be a problem. It'd be like the treating of.
Right. Yeah. No, I think definitely. I think that's not. I don't by any means think any adolescent in this film is just like you said, just the sort of generic young dumb victim. I think they all come into this situation and they just don't know what the fuck to do. They have to figure it out, you know, because Jerry is such a profound menace, you know. And Charlie, if anything, he's just ignorant to it at first. He's not just victimized. He just doesn't believe. I mean, and that's kind of the self-consciousness of the script too. Is he doesn't believe in vampires, you know.
Chris was saying that you all.
To our last question.
No problem. Chris was saying that you all did like a improvisational scene together, and it was really, really smooth. It sounded like that you two were bantering back and forth. So that was kind of feeds into that it sounds like you both are taking it upon yourselves to make it more realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just makes scenes feel more natural and more fun, and you really get a sense of communication between the characters as opposed to sort of a sense of just scripted dialogue. And like I said, I think there's a balance in this film of sometimes you need that stylized moment to give it a certain generic quality, you know, and talk about sort of genre, and then you have moments where it's just two people talking. And we did do that. We do that most of the time, actually, you know, just kind of with Emmy and with Chris and with Tony, and even with Colin, you know. Sometimes there's a kind of natural dialogue as opposed to stylized.
Nice. So how was it to get set on fire?
It was great. It was great. I mean,
I had to get that in there.
One last question.
It was great. It's. I mean, granted, I didn't, you know, fully go up in flames, but they set like my shoulder on fire, and they set my arm on fire, and they set my legs on fire, and my chest, and it's actually really cold. Like, you have to put on these long 2 pairs of long johns drenched in some sort of freezing fluid, and then 2 shirts, and then this plastic over it, and then they funnel it on this freezing gel in your balls, and it feels like you're gonna lose everything you got down there. It's really cold. I mean, you're freezing. Like, it literally, when I put all those long johns, it takes your breath away. It's like jumping into a freezing body of water where you suddenly feel like you can't breathe. And then when they set you on fire, it feels nice because you're just trying to get warm. You know, it's really it's counter to what you would think. You know, I mean, you're waiting. Like, I was standing there waiting.
Please
to
set me
warm
on
up.
fire.
Please just set me on fire already. And when you get set on fire, it feels nice. It's like coming in from, you know, a rainy day and sitting by the fire. Is what it feels like. You're just so warm. It's great. But like I said, those guys. I mean, the stunt guys. They're amazing. I mean, he got set. Chris Brewster ironically, my stunt guy's name is Chris Brewster. He got set on fire something like 30 times in a day. It was like more than I think they'd ever done, and they're pretty ballsy.
Well, we got to see the flipping around. Like, were you at all being flipped around while that was happening?
No, that's all Chris Brewster.
Because, wow, damn.
It's pretty crazy, yeah. It's pretty hardcore.
So you're supposed to be doing flippy stuff today at some point?
I get thrown today, but I'm not on fire.
Okay.
Yeah, they just get ratcheted on these wires across the room in the air. I did some of that before. I did some of that on Terminator. It's pretty fun, actually.
That's awesome. By the way, I had to tell you, you were spot on in Terminator.
Oh, thanks.
That was
Thanks.
excellent.
It's a great character. Yeah.
And it was.
All right, thank you.
Cool. Thanks for
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you so
Take care.
much.
Thank you.
so much.